Who needs law school when you have Radio Law Talk? That's our slogan on the back of our T-shirts. We're excited to have new T-shirts that say Radio Law Talk, who needs law school? So all those law students out there that want a shirt, maybe you should tweet in and ask for one. Maybe Todd will send one to you or Denise. Who knows?
Maybe.
But I have my wonderful co-hosts here, Todd Cunin to the left and Denise Dirks to the right. And back behind the glass, we have that guy, Cal Hunter.
Hello.
And Seth Madden, back from taking his bar exam, is here helping us again.
Welcome back.
Yeah, welcome back, Seth. My son is was law clerking. He's now gone back to law school, and we're stuck with Seth the whole time.
Well, you know, if you got to be stuck with somebody, that's somebody I don't mind being stuck with.
That's okay.
Exactly.
You don't see him all the time like I do.
I don't. So
that's exactly right. Well, again, we're talking about general topics today. Make sure you seek advice of counsel for all your legal needs. We're going to have some really fun topics today. But remember, if you want to call in, 855-LAW-RADIO. And Denise, you always say we can tweet it.
Tweet us at Radio Law Talk. We look forward to your tweets.
Exactly. We're going to talk about three kind of important things today that are kind of the latest topics, and I've got a funny story I've got to bring up. I just have to bring it, and I forgot to tell you guys before the show started, because a lot of times we'll talk, those of you who don't know what's going on in the background, is we'll talk about what's going on the show. I forgot to tell you, but we're going to talk about nanny cams. Parents who can lose custody of their troubled children and elder abuse, especially in the financial area that Todd's going to talk about. But let me tell you about some interesting things that I was reading about the other day. There's a Syracuse lawyer. Now, I've never thought of this one, Todd and Denise. Don't think of it. A Syracuse, New York lawyer got sanctioned and then had to appear about the sanctioning and somehow couldn't make it or had some issues, so called in a death threat to the courthouse. So they pulled the alarms, and the lawyers couldn't get in. Therefore, she wasn't sanctioned because she probably wasn't able to make it in. The judge thought, you know what? I don't know if she was trying to come in or not, so I can't sanction her. But good idea, right?
I'm thinking. So if you've seen the movie Liar, Liar. That's where she got it, where he beat himself up in the bathroom to get a continuance.
Well, here's the worst part about it. It wasn't even into the courthouse. At that courthouse, they have a child care. And she called into the child care place with a bomb threat. And it wasn't, court. This is a bomb threat to the court. It's to the child care. So
to the children. My sakes.
Yes. So they shut it down, and but guess what? She didn't have to appear in court. So
and they caught her.
They did.
They caught her because it showed up on her client's billing.
That's
it was a phone call.
That's exactly phone call, and then it had the phone call date and time also. That's exactly right.
Was that a $75 call? Do you think?
Probably. Well, that half-hour increment mandatory minimum billing that they do.
That's exactly right. Oh, and then here's another good one. Okay, so let's jump over from there. Let's jump over to vasectomies. That's the important thing.
And that's a natural segue. Bomb scares to vasectomies.
To no bombs.
Yes,
at all.
Taking the bullets out of the gun. Take us away there, Fred.
Assault with a dead weapon.
Yeah. Look at Seth's hand ready for the buzzer that he holds down. But listen, this is true. This is why I've got to bring this up. This is actually true. Dozens of inmates in White County, Tennessee, have taken advantage of the judge's offer of a 30-day sentence credit if they undergo vasectomies or contraceptive implants. This is for drug addicts or people who have drug problems. The court thought, you know what I'm going to do? You get a vasectomy, I'm going to back out 30 days. So it's like, I'm raising my hand for the vasectomy.
Well, that's not equal protection of the laws. What are they doing for the women?
They get the contraception.
I think that would be a public service for them. To take the men out of circulation.
That's exactly right. There you go. Take the men out.
But they get implants.
Yes. And so they get implants. So, but that's actually true. So, nothing
Birth
is really
control implants. Got it.
Yeah, but nothing's come of it yet. But they're all obviously they're talking about, is that a choice? Some are arguing, well, they still have the choice. They don't have to do it. Really, technically, think about it. Constitutionally, are they being forced? No, they don't have to.
No, it is a choice. You're right.
It's a choice. You can either take the 30 days or you can get the vasectomy. So I guess we have choices now in the courtroom.
Well, as long as they can show that it was a knowing and intelligent choice. I mean, look, people do things all the times in court. They waive their rights, waive the right to an attorney, waive the right to a jury trial, waive the right to confront witnesses. So if they can waive all of those constitutionally protected rights, why can't they waive the right to
Reproduce.
Yeah, no, and that's that. Some people are saying its choice violates the fundamental constitutional right of reproductive autonomy and bodily integrity by interfering with the inmate's decision of whether and when to have a child.
Did the legislature sign off on this, or was this something he came up with?
No, this is the court just
This
came
is
up
a
with.
Just came
judge.
up with it.
Yeah, he just came up with it. He said, hey, I got an idea.
Sentencing.
Last night I was
Penalty.
watching TV and I thought, you know what? I'm going to help these guys out and gals out.
Now, let me tell you something. I practiced law in Tennessee for a year, Northeast Tennessee.
sorry. Ooh,
I was.
I don't think we have people from Tennessee listening right
I
now.
was a prosecutor out there, and I could totally see a judge in Tennessee. You know, hey, Rusty, why don't you get Ward and Blanche? Come on in here. I got a wild idea here in General Sessions Court in Tennessee. We're going to give these folks an opportunity here to,
Have him bring his pocket knife.
yeah.
Oh, Cal.
Tell you what.
Cal, will you cut your radio? Will you cut your mic off? Oh, my gosh.
And a jigger of whiskey.
Put a cherry bomb in a can of Coke and have him count to 11. When it runs out of fingers, we're gold.
Oh, man.
Man.
People are like, I'm going to listen to Radio Law Talk. I can learn something here. No, you're not. You're just hearing a bunch of laughing.
Yeah, they're back. Okay, go to law school.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Forget the saying about who needs law school. You should.
Yeah.
We're going to turn it over to Denise to talk about something that maybe people listening can learn from, and that is about parents losing custody of their troubled children.
Yes, this California Supreme Court has just heard a case, and it's a really fun and very significant case. It involves the interplay between the delinquency and the dependency laws. We call them the 300 and the 600 cases, but it's California Welfare and Institution Code 300 or California Welfare and Institution Code 600. The 300 case are really when the parents have some fault or conduct. The 600 cases are when the child has some kind of misconduct.
What do you mean? I mean, so if the parents have misconduct toward the child?
Correct.
Okay.
Toward the child, or they are incapable of controlling their child. In this case,
Sounds
that
like
is
Todd
what
and
it
I's
is.
problem.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'd like to do a disclaimer. If my kids are listening right now, turn the radio off.
That's right.
Okay.
The really fun fact in this case is that the child in this case was 17 and a half years old. So we're talking about a half a year away from becoming, no longer a minor.
Oh, you know as well as I do, both of you, that the minute you turn 18, it's a massive change in their demeanor from when they're 17 years old and 11 months.
Exactly.
They're completely different.
That's right, because they are responsible for themselves.
Yeah, it takes about a month, and then they get responsible.
In theory, their idea of responsibility is, hey, Dad, could I borrow some money?
Now I'll put the gas in the car instead of having to just drive it.
Yes.
Yeah, the challenge in this case, the appeal was actually done by the mother, who did not want to be, what's the word for it? She did not want to be identified as an abuser of her child. And she is the one who appealed the case, and it went all the way up to the Supreme Court. And it's really exciting.
Okay, we're going to talk more about it after these great commercial breaks from our sponsors, and we can talk more about the problems with our children, right?
Yes, we can.
And on a Monday, I'm gonna love
You are listening to RadioLawTalk.com.
you. And on a Wednesday, Thursday,
Thank you for listening to RadioLawTalk.com.
We're back with the Three Stooges again, especially the one to my left, Todd.
I gotta love the way we've segued here. We went from talk about vasectomies and the and losing the ability to have children, and now we're segueing back to Denise and what to do after you've had the children. So we've gone from
And how to lose them after
losing
that.
the ability to have, and now losing the ability to possess. So
Or to parent.
Yeah,
this is a
Maybe if you listened to the judge in the first place, you wouldn't have these problems Denise is talking about.
that could be.
Well, this case is for California Supreme Court speaking directly on the issues between dependency and delinquency of children. And in dependency action, you have a parent who has done something or not done something, and the child then becomes a ward of the state. In a delinquency case, the child has done some misconduct and becomes a ward of the state. In both cases, there's a potential for the parent to have to pay while the child's a ward of the state. So
That's always the
yeah.
case. There's always the potential.
Money
for the
that
parent
the
to
government
pay.
wants? Is that what you're trying to tell me?
Yikes.
It's a shocker.
Yes, you're going to pay. In Re RT, and this is a person coming under the juvenile court law, and they never name the minor in the case. They keep
Right.
that private. And so Lisa is the mother, and they don't use her last name as well. But you can look at this. It comes out of Los Angeles County, and this is a case where the child was just a repeat runaway, and she went out and she got pregnant, and then she went out and she was pregnant at the time that she became a ward of the state. And this case, the mother appealed the case because the court found that her inability to control her child made it such that it fell under the 300 code of the Welfare and Institution Code, subdivision B1, and that they removed the child from her for that reason. And the background's a little interesting. This child was very troubled, had a lot of just acting out, refused to go to school, and mother had placed the child ultimately with grandparents. And it comes to court because the child threw a chair at her grandfather, and then she was then taken into protective custody, if you will. And mother was very upset because they found that this was a 300 case, which means they have to find something about the parent that was, if you will, improper, rather than a 600 case, which would be they only have to find that the child did something that was improper.
Because heaven forbid the child be held responsible for their own behavior. It has to be the parent's fault, right?
Well, that's what this is indicating.
Yeah.
Now, what the court actually said, and they were really, really specific, Mom did nothing wrong. Mom did nothing wrong in this case. Mom did everything she could do to control her child. But under the 300 B1 code, she had the failure or inability to adequately supervise and protect her child.
Ooh.
And that's
Can't
what
wait till
the
they turn
finding
18.
was.
At least mine all turned 18. I'm good now. Whew.
Yeah.
I
exactly.
still got a ways to go.
Mine are all out there too. So.
But in the question of an out-of-control child, who would have the ability to properly supervise them? Someone in jail, but otherwise the child is still going to act out, even if they're in a foster situation, aren't they?
Yeah, I would say that if you have an incorrigible child, that you will truly have a difficult time controlling them or supervising them, as the court in this case pretty much declared.
Right.
And really, the court did not find any fault at all with the parents, neither
But they
the
still
mother
have to
or the
pay.
father. Well, this case doesn't really discuss the payment aspect of it. I was curious if there was a difference between dependency and delinquency and whether or not the parents have to pay. And the truth is, there's really no difference. It's a matter of ability to pay.
Right.
So if the court finds that there's an ability for the parent to pay, then they will pay.
Okay.
So it doesn't matter. So really, truly, Mom in this case did not want to have the stigma of being found, in violation of a 300 case, because that basically is saying the parent did something. And in this case, the parent was unable to control or supervise her 17-and-a-half-year-old child.
So I think the moral of the story is take the 30-day cut from the judge, and you don't have to deal with these problems.
That's right. See, Tennessee goes back. California wants to deal with the child after they're born. Tennessee says, "Well, we're just gonna
Take care of it before.
we're gonna nip this one in the bud here, so to speak. No pun intended." And the interesting thing about this is, let's see, the government couldn't get the postal system to run great. They're having troubles with health care. The insurance industry they can't do, but now they're going to jump into the fray of parenting.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah,
So-
that'll work out great.
Well, it is a really important decision, and what's so exciting about this is because now you can find a parent at fault when they have no fault. and this mother was really truly trying to get the court to say, no, this is a status offense, meaning the child is at fault here. But the court said, look, we're going to protect this minor child. If we do a status offense, that goes and stigmatize that child as an adult and later on in life. So we'd rather stigmatize the parent than we would stigmatize the child.
Wow. Interesting.
Yeah.
And you know who this is really going to hurt? This is really going to sting and hurt
the lawyers.
Shows like Maury Povich and Jerry Springer, because nobody's going to want to take their troubled child on those shows anymore, because then the evidence of that's all going to be on TV.
That's true.
That's who we're trying to protect is Maury.
Yes, we are.
Yeah. And the Supreme Court in this case also heard the case de novo. And what that means is they are like the trial court. They're hearing all the facts and incorporating all the facts as if it's a new trial. They're only they were only limited by one thing, and that is all the facts that they had at the trial court level, they had to presume or raise an inference in favor of the finding of the trial court. So it's also a very interesting appeal in that remark.
Wow.
Well, all I learned is one thing. I'm taking the 30 days.
I'm just taking the 30 days.
My wife and I had 9 children together. Where was the vasectomy offer when I needed it?
Well, when your wife needed it, what are you talking about?
Right, exactly.
Oh my gosh. Well, that's interesting, Denise. But you have to think about this. The laws in every state and in California are a little more strict about children and what we need to do. And I appreciate that wonderful insight, Denise. We can go in detail more, but guess what? We're going to talk about elder abuse when it comes to financial issues with Todd right after the break.
Hey, shootout for Pam in Eugene, Oregon.
Yeah, she's listening to us.
When I get old.
Go to the website, radiolawtalk.com. You can listen to the show there, and there's a lot of other good information, too. That's radiolawtalk.com.
Don't forget to follow us on our YouTube channel and watch us look funny and touch our noses and stuff like that at Radio Law Talk YouTube channel. You can also watch our...
Watch the hijinks going on.
Yeah. Then we podcast it later. Within a few days, the podcast will be on. But interesting things about nanny cams that we're going to talk about in a minute. But before we get to the nanny cams, because when nanny cams rolls right into this, because it's nanny cams not for children, but also for the elderly. And there's a lot of elderly abuse that goes on out there. And you hear about elderly abuse, the elderly being abused physically sometimes, but it's the financial issue that is biggest.
That's right. And clearly, physical abuse of an elder is a violation of law. I don't want to ignore that. And an elder is defined as anyone over the age of 65 or over. And so physical abuse of an elder is clearly a violation of the law, but it's also a violation of the law to physically abuse somebody. It's called assault if they're under the age of 65. So I wanted to focus a little bit more on the financial aspects of it, because that falls under the umbrella of the definition of abuse for purposes of elder abuse. Now I want to run a scenario by you, okay? And this is where we see things happen a lot when it comes to financial elder abuse. Let's say Alice, Bobby, and Charles have a mother who is in her 80s, and she's always taking care of herself. She lives on her own in her 80s. She's probably got her eye on Cal. Okay, as a
hot youngie.
Well, anyone that does a drive-through marijuana place in Red Bluff that goes through it often, I think is
Cal is over there as the pool boy,
That's
and so
I can see him holding the net, man.
Oh, Cal,
in his
could you
bathing
get me?
suit.
Could you get me the Long Island iced tea, please? Yes, Mrs. Johnson. So she's in her
Then
80s.
Cal woke up.
Yes. So
My
she's
wife is going to kill me.
She's in her 80s. And so Alice, Bobby, and Charles decide, you know what, we want to do the responsible thing because Mom wants to live on her own. She's got independence. So we're going to hire an in-home caregiver for her. All right? And because Mom needs to have somebody to drive for her, and she has some medications that she has to take on a regular basis. So we want to hire this in-home caregiver. Now, the neighbors notice this, that Grandma used to come outside and work in her rose garden every day. Every morning she'd wake up, throw open the windows, open up the garage door, go out and work in the garden. And within 3 weeks of the caregiver moving in, the roses are now not getting care. The garage door doesn't open up very much. They're concerned. They call the kids. The kids don't think anything is wrong. They're able to talk. So the neighbors call the police department, who go over to do a welfare check on her, and they get there, and the caregiver says, well, she can't come right now. She's sleeping. She's always sleeping. And then we find out, after about 6 weeks in, that the deed has changed on the home, and now the caregiver is on the deed for the house. And the caregiver is also a joint signatory on the checking account and the savings account. And the will has been changed to add the caregiver's name. This, folks, is an example of elder abuse. And this is actually, I've changed the names and some of the scenarios, but this is a scenario that actually happened. One that I'm familiar with from my days in prosecuting. I didn't prosecute it, but I'm familiar with the case.
And out in the driveway, the caregiver's 1979 Toyota Corolla turns into a new red Ferrari.
That or a Bentley.
Okay.
And
we
yes.
like Bentleys.
So we have all of that, and the caregiver, the thing that really helped out was there are people that are what's called mandatory reporters. Okay, now in the child abuse context, a mandatory reporter would be, say, a school teacher. A child comes in, there's bruises,
Right.
or a medical professional. They see this, they have an obligation to report it to law enforcement. Well, certain people in financial institutions have the same obligations.
Oh, I didn't know
So
that.
if they go to the bank and a person in the financial institution is of the opinion that somebody might be taken advantage of, they have an obligation to call law enforcement and to have somebody look at this. And that's what happened in this case.
It's a liability. That's another whole segment on liability, Denise.
Yeah, and most states have something that is like an adult protective services type that will also do the investigation into any kind of claims of elder abuse.
Absolutely. And this is what happens in a situation like this, where somebody can come in and the family thinks they're doing the right thing, opening the doors to an individual to come in and take advantage of an elderly individual who just wants to be nice and wants to help out. It starts out with little things. I hesitate because I know my parents are listening to this and they're going to think, because they're both over 65.
They're waiting for you guys to come and take advantage of
Yes,
what you're trying to
yes.
say?
So,
you and the fam?
And I would say to Garrett, if he's listening, you still got about 15, 20 years, Garrett, before you're guilty of elder abuse. You're okay.
Well, here's the best part about that. I'm going to digress. I told them the one that changes my diaper when I'm old is the one that's getting the inheritance. So far, I don't think anyone is going to be inheriting anything.
They're not stepping up to that plate.
Seth's raising his hand. He says he'll change my diaper.
Thanks for warning my kids.
He says, will you do it? And the response is, depends.
Oh, there you go.
Here we go
Hey,
again.
there you go. We needed that one.
Oh, man.
Really, I think that is super important for people out there, that if you have a feeling that something is not right with an elder person, and elders defined as over the age of 65, and if you have just a feeling, I mean, you could meet them at the post office, or you can meet them at the mailbox, and you see a bruise on the arm or something and they can't explain it. If something feels that it's not right, check into it, because elder people, as they get older and older, they become more and more vulnerable. And we're not talking about just caretakers. We're talking about family members that could be abusing them. And there's a lot of different types of abuse. We're talking physical abuse, emotional abuse, sexual abuse. There's neglect or abandonment by the caregivers. You're talking mostly today about financial exploitation, but there's also health care fraud. There's Social Security fraud. So,
Which are all other segments.
yeah, they're all types of abuse against elder people.
And they're targeted because the belief is, and sadly enough, oftentimes is true, that despite the fact that they are adults over the age of 17 and a half, we have gone full circle here from vasectomies to losing control of children to now losing
elderly.
control of parents with the parents here.
And then we got videos coming up.
That's
so we
right.
got it all.
But we've got but they have the diminished capacity sometimes to recognize things that are coming in, and the elderly are also facing assaults on them, if you will, through social media. And some of the things that the elderly are particularly targeted on are things that come in. We used to call it the bail scam. And here's what happens. And this comes from when I used to prosecute elder abuse as a prosecutor.
Help little Joey's in jail.
Yeah, and so here's what happened. So Grandma gets a call from little Joey, we'll say, and Joey says, "Grandma, I'm down here in Mexico, and I got arrested."
It's actually not Joey. It's some guy that's representing, quote, Joey.
Yes. Well, it sounds like Joey.
Right.
Everything seems like it's on the up and up, and I need to make bail, and don't tell Mom and Dad. Can you wire me? Now, here's the tip. If they ask you to wire it via Western Union, that's the dead giveaway there.
To Guatemala.
Because there are issues about how long you have before you can get that money back. After 48 hours, it's gone. There's no getting it back.
That's right.
And so Grandma decides, okay, I'm going to help out Joey, and they wire the $5,000, and they don't think about anything until the family reunion 2 months down the road. And Grandma goes up to Joey and says, "Hey, I got you out of that jam." And Joey says, "What are you talking about?"
No, this actually happened to my mother-in-law.
Yeah.
And she had the common sense to call my husband and say, "Hey, is Patrick not in the country? Did he get arrested in Mexico?" And my husband said, "What are you talking about? You know, he's at school right now." So, that kind of a scam is also elder abuse, correct?
It is. If they know or reasonably should know that the person is 65 or over. But here is where it's really hard, because in that situation you talked about, the person wasn't out of the country. Well, what about if Joey is in Mexico? The real Joey is actually on vacation. And how did these people find out? Because Joey posted it on Facebook. I'm down in Cancun, and the security concerns aren't there, are not activated on Facebook. And so somebody sees Joey's in Cancun, and he's got a grandma. And guess what? Whoever set up Grandma's Facebook page put her phone number in there.
Nice.
So I'm going to call Grandma, and she's going to believe me because Joey is actually in Mexico, and they're out $5,000.
Social media is just a killer. And we've said this before on this program. My clients, I tell them all the time, get off the social media, because whatever you say, and I'm telling you, we have won some big cases or done well on some big cases because of the social media of the defendant, who, by the way, on one case was laughing about the seriousness of our clients who literally almost died. One died and they brought back on social media. And it's just like, okay, they're writing big checks. So anyway, we've got about 15 seconds left. We're going to leave with this segment, come back and talk more about this elderly abuse and talk about the nanny cams too. We'll be right back.
You're listening to RadioLawTalk.com. Back to the show.
Talking about elder abuse and nanny cams.
Yes, and I want to finish up the elder abuse thing on the other side of the coin. We used the example of Alice, Bobby, and Charles getting a caregiver for their mother. Now let's look at the other side, and that is people who can innocently be pulled up in the net of elder abuse who actually do nothing wrong. And we'll use the same folks, but let's change the scenario. A, B, and C, Annie, Bobby, and Charles never go and visit their mom. Ever. They haven't talked to her in 20 years. They don't do anything. And the only person that visits the 80-year-old mom is Molly from church. And she goes over doing what she feels she needs to do from a religious standpoint. She does what you talked about, Denise, caring for the elderly, and goes over. And Mom is so taken by the generosity of Molly that maybe even unbeknownst to Molly, Mom decides to change the will and leave a lot of money to Molly. And what we saw when I prosecuted elder abuse is when the will is read after Mom passes on, and these kids that never visited her now see their inheritance being given to somebody that they don't know, guess who gets accused of financial elder abuse?
Yeah, the
Molly.
innocent.
The innocent that comes in. And so you really got to watch yourself on all ends here. It's sad when that happens, and luckily There's a big difference between making a report of elder abuse and then a DA actually prosecuting it. But as we all know, to merely be accused of something is very stressful to the individual. You go through a period of time to try to exonerate yourself. And so that's what we see on the other end of the spectrum. Now, sometimes elder abuse is caught on cameras. Okay? Before we get there, Denise, I believe you have some numbers that folks can call if they suspect elder abuse is occurring. Is that right?
That's true. And don't forget that neglect is also elder abuse. So if you're a caretaker and you are neglecting that elder and not bathing them properly, or not getting them dressed properly, or not getting them out of bed properly, or doing things and just being neglectful, that's also elder abuse. And I say that because a lot of people may not know that. So if you have any inkling that someone is suffering from elder abuse or neglect in the United States, there is a hotline. It is 1-800-677-1116. And they will help you locate someone to help.
And we'll throw that up. We'll throw that up on our Facebook page.
Yes, and in the United Kingdom, it's 080-8808-8141, and that's an action on elder abuse. That'll actually help you take action. And we have numbers on Australia. I won't name
we'll
those.
throw those up.
And South Africa and Canada. All of these countries have made elder abuse and prevention of elder abuse a priority, and they have hotlines and helplines. You can look it up online.
Or you can get a nanny cam.
Get a nanny cam.
So nanny cams people think about are, okay, it's for the children, or my child being abused, or my baby being abused, but they're also doing it now for elders. Now let's talk about them. I had someone ask me about it the other day and said, hey, what's the rule and law about nanny cam? In all 50 states, it is legal to put a nanny cam in. So everyone's like, whoa, you can do that? Yes, you can. There are some exceptions. There's 13 states, including California, you cannot have any voice. Make sure there's no voice.
No audio.
Or audio. And that's because there is issues of unauthorized wiretaps under California Penal Code Section 631. So do not listen in and check your state and check with a local attorney, but you can throw in a normal nanny cam in your home. Now let's talk about the pros and the cons. What's the nanny going to argue? They're going to argue, I don't want to be recorded. And I'm not going to be here if you're going to record me. And second of all, if they find out, it's going to harm your relationship with that nanny who might be a good nanny. The other problem is, what about videos? Very low quality. You think, oh, well, videos nowadays are very high quality. Nanny cams, they're like $104 at Toys R Us, and the quality is not there. Even though you can get some better quality than 20 years ago, they're still not there. And the other thing is, it's important for the nannies is you really don't know everything that happened. It's just a small portion of the picture. And Todd, you were talking in the off season about. I mean, not the off-season. About
off-season.
Yeah, it's off-season.
We're sports here.
Well, he's a baseball announcer. We were talking about the off-season. But when you were a prosecutor, there was an issue of a police officer. They couldn't tell from one camera.
It was an officer-involved shooting, and from the perspective of the body camera of the officer who was doing the shooting, it looked like he and his other officers were shooting this unarmed person who was just walking away from them. And it was really damaging evidence for the officers, because it looked like there was no justification. They just opened fire on somebody who had a back to them and was walking away.
Right.
But there was another officer that was perpendicular to them and had a nice side view of that body cam. And what you couldn't see in the first one, and you could see from the second, was the person walking away was holding a gun underneath his armpit and firing back at the officers. So the officers were actually returning fire because this guy was shooting at them. And that second video exonerated him. If they had only had the one video, the officers claiming, oh, he was shooting at me, nobody would have bought it. They would have thought that the officer planted the gun afterwards. It was that second video that really helped him out.
Right. So go ahead.
That's a limitation of the nanny cams, is because unless you have several different nanny cams taking a different view, then one view is really only one-dimensional, and it may not actually help to find a culprit of abuse.
And it's low quality. Now, if you're the parent, also Denise said that maybe you can manipulate those cameras or manipulate the film. Excuse me. So a parent, what's their argument? It's my house. If the babysitter is doing something wrong, I have the right to know about that. I'm going to protect my child or my elderly parent or grandparent, and they have the right to do that. Now let's talk about these cameras when you do, or if you do put them in. There's certain areas you cannot put them in the state of California. Generally, and most states are looking at this issue. This is an issue too, so you got to make sure in your state you follow this rule. You can't put it in the nanny's bedroom. You can't put it in the nanny's shower. You can't put it on top of the roof in Oregon when Denise is sunbathing. That slipped again. Doggone, I keep bringing up that issue.
Those nanny cams.
Those nanny cams back. Oh, they used binoculars back in those days, right, Denise?
Yes, there was not a recording audio or
Back
video.
in my day, we didn't have nanny cams.
For those of you who are first listening to the show, go back and listen to our podcast on Denise's
Judge's
stories.
recall.
That's exactly right. So anyway, make sure you do not. You don't stick those nanny cams in areas they're not supposed to be. Now, what happens when you walk out into the public? Guess what? The camera you're on, there's no issue. I mean, no issue as to you can be recorded, with the exception of, obviously, you can't put it in a private bathroom in a restaurant or something like that. You've got to be careful of that.
There are things that really mirror, these are private individuals, so it's not technically a constitutional issue. But the laws tend to mirror the concept of expectation of privacy. And if a person has an expectation of privacy, which they clearly do in a bathroom, in a shower, in places like that, anywhere you go in public, when I go to the supermarket, I have no expectation. Guess what? I'm on surveillance video. Note here, when you go into a supermarket, Target, Fry's, I don't care, anywhere you go, you are on camera everywhere.
That's exactly right,
Yeah.
especially nowadays. But I'll tell you what the most interesting thing is you got to be careful of. Nowadays with the nanny cams, wow, you got to be careful what you're doing. I remember back when they didn't have nanny cams, but they had the little baby monitors.
Yes.
I'm going to tell a quick story. My wife's going to be mad. I remember we all stayed at Grandma's house, and we were back in our bed. We had this bedroom way in the back, and our child was, we had the little, what do you call those? Not even cameras. They had the little monitors.
Monitors.
Little
Yeah.
monitors. God, I had a
For sound.
yeah, just for sound. And sure enough, I got this on our door. Yeah, turn off the monitor. And I looked at my wife and I looked at it. Luckily, nothing was going on, but they're saying the monitor's on and it's in the living room with Grandma and Grandpa and everybody's listening. So there we go. So the nanny cam, you got to be careful of that.
Yeah, also they can get hacked. I don't know if anybody knows that, but monitors and the nanny cams can get hacked, and you can be recording yourself and be seen by a third person if they hack into your nanny cam. And I went on and I looked at things caught on nanny cam, and there are so many YouTube videos that are out there that show what was caught on nanny cam, and parents have been caught cheating on the nanny cam.
Nanny cams.
Oftentimes with the nanny.
Whoa-oh. Whoa-oh.
Hence the name.
Hence the name.
And they're getting a vasectomy after that if they
Yes.
don't knock it off.
and that might not be a voluntary one.
That's
But
exactly
nanny
right.
cams do help to prevent bad behavior.
Until next time, I'm your host, Frederick Penny. That's the end of the Radio Law Talk show. Catch us at radiolawtalk.com, tweet us, or go to our podcast. Next week, we'll talk
YouTube.
to you.
I know that you don't know it, but you find so